this series, this is the third one, we've explored the body, which is our first layer, and our breath and energy, which is our second layer of self-awareness. The third layer, like the others, has been sourced from a 3,000-year-old wisdom tradition from India, the Upanishads, and today we're going to talk about the mind. And in considering the mind, we have to consider the brain. Now, we tend to think of the mind and the brain interchangeably, and they do affect and impact one another. But there are important differences that we need to understand in order to get a clear picture of how we can use our mind with its thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, the helpful ones and the unhelpful ones, to find our way to more clarity, contentment, and resilience. First, the brain. Now, our brain is a visible, tangible part of our physical body. It contains billions of nerve fibers, which are connected by trillions of synapses. And scientists used to believe that the human brain was fixed at birth, but the latest research now views the workings of our brains as continually refiguring itself in response to what we experience, to what we learn, to injury, and to trauma. And the research is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's called neuroscience. And this means that no matter how much mental turmoil we experience, we do have the power to make choices and changes to inch our way toward true healing. Nobody said it was a quick fix. And our brain cells, well, they're not just in our brain. Studies have found brain cells in other parts of the body. Here's an example. Our gut has more than 100 million nerve cells. The heart has 40,000 nerve cells. So these three brains, our head, our heart, and our gut, communicate with each other neurologically, biochemically, biophysically, and energetically, which means that wherever there are nerves, the brain and the mind is there also. During an autopsy, that brain, that physical brain, can be seen, touched, and dissected. The mind is a little bit different. The mind is composed of our thoughts, emotions, beliefs, our ego, and our personality. And this is how we think, what we think about, what we believe, how we experience and express those thoughts, emotions, etc. And they're tools, along with the ego and our personality, that help us perceive and understand what is happening within and around us. And if anybody tells you that the ego must be destroyed in order for you to heal, leave that conversation immediately. Ask for a refund if you paid to hear that message, because the true goal is for you to become aware of the workings of your mind, your ego, and your personality, your beliefs. You observe them, you learn to manage them. And bottom line, the mind is not physical. During an autopsy, the mind cannot be seen, touched, or dissected. The mind is a mystery. So, in the first session, step one, we learned the 9 steps to self-awareness. In step one, we learned to be aware of our body and our breath, of our body and our environment. And in step 2, we learned to be aware of our breath and our energy. So as we move through our 9 steps to self-awareness, today we're on steps 3 and 4, exploring the mind. Step 3, identify thoughts and feelings. 4, explore beliefs. So understanding how this works is to help us manage what we are experiencing, not to control. And here's a real life example. Most of us, many of us, believe that a balanced diet, regular exercise, and supportive social connections will keep us healthy as we age. And I know that my belief in balanced living keeps me exercising, well, without taking too many days off, eating nutritious food that my body digests well, and there's always going to be a few cheat days here and there, and then practicing yoga, both on and off the mat. Other beliefs are unhelpful and unproductive. For example, my life. I once held the belief that asking for help was a sign of weakness. It took me a while. I got really stressed out and finally identified how I felt when help was offered and I refused, or when I resisted asking for it when it was clearly needed. I found feelings of irritation, anger, and incompetence. So I identified that thought and the feeling. Then I had to explore how these feelings were affecting my peace of mind, because clearly they were. And many times between work, family, and social responsibilities, I found myself overwhelmed and stressed, and I could have used help. It was my emotional attachment to the belief about asking for help that caused my stress and discomfort. Once I recognized that and began to explore those feelings, I came to accept the connection between my uncomfortable feelings and resistance around asking for or receiving help. So, identifying those feelings and exploring them means, not meant, means that I'm learning to think clearly about asking for help and accepting it with gratitude when it's offered. I no longer believe it's a sign of weakness. Well, and that's most of the time, because after all, this whole thing, healing, is a process. So we're going to move into doing some interactive exercises. But before we focus on the mind, we will start with a few simple physical stretches and a breath practice to prepare ourselves to focus on layer 3, the mind. So before we begin, please remember that if your body cannot or does not want to do a particular move or exercise, it's your choice to modify it, skip it, or simply visualize the movement or the exercise in your mind. You can keep your eyes open or closed. You need to be comfortable. You are in charge of your experience. And I'm going to stop share, and I'm going to ask you to become in a comfortable seated position, whether you're on the mat or on the floor. Relax your shoulders. And we're going to begin with a quick body scan and breath awareness. So just become aware of your body, how it's sitting, what your posture is. Make sure you're very comfortable. Notice your legs and your arms, your torso, your head and your neck, and just pick up any sensations that you are experiencing in your body at this point in time, with compassion, no judgment. And then move your attention, your awareness to your natural breath flowing through the body. And you're going to notice your breath in all of its 4 parts: a full deep inhalation, slight pause before exhalation. Notice your exhalation, the slight pause before you inhale. Just let the breath come and go naturally, being aware that you have 4 parts of your breath. You're not trying to change your breath, you're just watching it. Enjoy the ebb and flow. Become aware of the breath as it fills the body, hopefully with peace and relaxation. And just maintain awareness of the breath for 3 to 5 more long, deep breaths. Just awareness of 4 parts of the breath. Complete awareness. Good. And then gently begin to move your fingers and your toes. And the stretch we're going to do is called staff pose. So if you're comfortable, you're going to stretch your legs straight out and raise your arms all the way up over your head, spreading your toes and your fingers. And then exhale and let the arms come down and the legs come down. Then placing your left hand on your hip, you're going to raise your right arm and just simply stretch over. Good. And then you're going to switch sides, taking another little side stretch. Good. And then you're going to come to center and place your hand to your elbow and gently twist to one side. And gently twist to the other side. Good. And then come to center and relax. So our practice for the mind is going to be watching our thoughts. So again, you're in a comfortable seated position. You can either keep your eyes open or closed. We are going to practice watching the thoughts. So we're just going to bring our attention to our mind space, and you're going to become aware of your thoughts as they flow through the mind space. And you want to notice, are those thoughts fixed on one thing or many things? Do those thoughts flow or do they dead end? Try to see each one as a puffy white cloud in a clear blue sky, simply rising, moving through the mind space, passing by, making room for the next. Notice that you have the ability to absolutely watch the thoughts without becoming involved in them or attached to them. One by one, you just watch. You notice them, you name them. Notice particularly if the thoughts that are flowing through the mind are from the past or from the future. Or do they rest in the present? Is the mind filled with images as opposed to thoughts? So you're just watching. You're not trying to control or fix on anything. You're just watching what rises. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about what you might be seeing. You're just watching and you want to notice is what you are experiencing, is it helpful? Not helpful. Are you experiencing troubling thoughts or difficult emotions? Are they of anger or grief? Or are they of exciting highs and flights of excitement? Just notice whether what you are thinking or seeing in your mind is helpful or not helpful. Next, notice what's in your mind. Notice if it's a judging. Are you judging? Or do these thoughts judge you? Or do they judge others? Or do they judge an experience? So notice and see if it's judging. Good. Next, are these thoughts planning? Are you anticipating something for tomorrow or next week? Does your current state of mind relate to anticipation of the future? Just notice what is moving through the mind in terms of planning. Or perhaps the thoughts and the images are of remembering, recalling memories from the past, maybe from a few moments ago, or further in the past, something that happened long ago or recently. Just notice as these thoughts or images float through the mind. Analyzing, perhaps you're solving a problem. Maybe there's a relationship issue, a medical issue, an incident that was troubling, or one that was pleasant. Perhaps it's a lifestyle issue, something you're concerned about your home or the people you live with, or your pets or your plants. Just analyze. Are you analyzing? Just notice. Or are your thoughts at this moment just simply resting in the moment with nothing flowing through? Just for a quick second, is notice whether you have many thoughts, a few thoughts, or if for just a heartbeat, there's no thought. So you just notice all of this with compassion and without judgment, remembering you always have the ability to watch the mind without becoming entangled or attached to what you find in your mind space. Good. So now that we have watched the thoughts and images and gotten a little bit of an idea of what's going on in there, now we're going to do a visualization to help focus the mind. I'm going to name a series of images, and you're just going to try to see them in your mind. But if visualization is not your thing, then you can simply repeat the name of the object that I mentioned. We'll go through about 12 images. Take a deep breath in, let the breath out. In your mind, see gray clouds drifting, a sleeping baby, a horse, a sandy beach, an elephant, a cabin by a lake, a campfire, ocean waves, blue flowers, a red apple, a tall tree, a smooth, calm lake. Select any one of those images that you were attracted to or that you like. Try to keep it in your mind for the next several breaths you take. Just watching the breath flow in and out, trying to keep that image in your mind. And the mind will wander, other thoughts are going to flop in, but try to bring your mind back to the image that you have selected. And even when it disappears, just take a breath in and out and bring that image back in your mind for however long it wishes to stay. Good. Couple more nice deep breaths in and out as you work with that image. Excellent. Then let that image go. And over the next couple of breaths, just turn back to what's floating through your mind. Notice if those thoughts or images have changed in any way, shifted in any way, moved on to something either more troubling or more pleasant. Again, you're just watching the mind. A couple more nice, easy breaths in and out as you watch and focus the mind. Learning to see what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what you are sensing. Good. And now slowly move fingers and toes, just gently stretching your fingers and toes in any way that's comfortable as you return to full awareness. And then we'll conclude with a staff pose. Again, stretching your legs out, raising your arms up overhead, taking a nice big stretch. Exhale, relaxing the arms down. And then take that side stretch one more time, getting back into our physical bodies, stretching to one side. And then stretching to the other side. And concluding with a twist, hand to elbow, and gently twist to one side. Gently twist to the opposite side. Come back to the center and then tap your feet, shake your hands, shake your whole body. It's called shaking horse, and it helps to redistribute the energy. And then let's take one nice big deep breath together, raising the arms up overhead. And exhale down. And then we're ready to take some questions or comments from folks. Let's see what questions.
Just put the word out that we're going to take questions. So let's give people a minute to come up with them.
All righty. And while everybody's waiting, if you want to repeat those stretches again, you certainly can. Remember, it's staff pose is very simple. It's good for circulation, arms overhead, stretching the legs out for the whole body, and then exhaling down. Did anybody find it difficult to pay attention to the mind, to follow the thoughts, or to see those images?
Me personally, I do have a little trouble with that, yeah. But once I sort of get a few minutes in, then it becomes much easier. Once I've sort of cleared everything else out that's going on.
Well, I'm reading a book by Dr. Sanjay Gupta called Brain Keep Sharp, and he talks about an experience he had meditating with the Dalai Lama. And of course, he was having a hard time, and he was expressing that to the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama said, I have problems. It's hard for me too. And I've been doing it for a long, long time. Okay.
So there are a few comments coming in. So someone's saying, I found it rather easy today. So good for them, Valerie. And then Diana saying it was also easier for her today. Someone is saying, I will use this focus activity again. It was a bit of a challenge to keep one image at a time. And someone's saying they really like the prompting that you choose to use during these thought processes.
Oh, good. That's important feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's another thing I found too, is whoever the instructor I'm working with, something resonates with me or it doesn't. And I feel like it's like a good therapist or like a good
Right.
doctor, like, there's some personal connection there.
Yeah.
And that's very helpful.
That's very true. I mean, I have listened to these types of exercises with people's prompting and voices, which is reminded me to, like, it was like chalk, fingers on the chalkboard. And then the best experience I had when I was first starting out was with this Indian man from Australia. So his accent was somewhere between Indian and Australian, and
Hmm.
it was very strange, but there was something about his voice. And it was the first time I actually stayed awake through a whole yoga nidra process. So of course I bought his CD and still use it.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if there's something tonally, or if it's what sort of that connection is.
Mhm.
I mean, it's probably just a personality thing, but
Yeah,
it's,
and everybody's different. I mean, there are people who love the voice that I can't stand and who can't stand the voices I love. So fortunately, we are fortunate enough to have so many voices and so many different tracks and concepts to choose from. So there is something for everyone. So you just have to kind of find what works for you, and that's
yeah.
fine. Yep. Next week is going to be very interesting because just like we talked about how the mind and the brain interact and affect each other, but there's some separation. The fourth layer of self-awareness is the intuitive wisdom, the witness. And many of you were using the witness because that is what you are using. You're using that layer when you're focusing and trying to see what is in your mind space. So we're going to be taking a hard look at the witness, and that concept is, again, a little very interesting because the mind and the witness, there are similarities, but there are important differences. And I think if I had to pick the most important layer to begin to work on, it would be the witness. And we'll talk more about that next week. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's just, this whole thing is just it's always fascinated me. And it is helpful. It's very helpful. So I'm hoping folks who are listening to this get something out of it that they can use.